Now, when elected, whoever is elected, and it could be all of one party, it could be a mixture of people, there's no trading wheels period. There's no getting to figure out your job. And we saw that this year. First thing back, hotly contested, Senate Bill 5, grabbed national headlines, grabbed state headlines, and eventually OU and OU Student Senate grabbed some of those headlines as well for its handling of a proposed resolution condemning Senate Bill 5. Now, without getting into the politics of Senate Bill 5, I know all of you have brought up in the past, thinking maybe it could have been handled a little bit differently. How would you have handled that situation? But in a broader sense, how ready are you to answer those hard questions, whether that's Fest, whether that's Halloween, whether that's quarters to semesters, when your first catastrophe or PR disaster happens, and when my editors are calling you next year, how are you going to handle it?
I can tell you this, first of all, as soon as I am elected, I'd hit the ground running and I'd be able to make those decisions right away. And I'd be able to do that because I have confidence in myself to do that, and that's the first thing you need when it comes to making hard decisions such as those. Kyle Triplett did a great job this year in handling that situation. No one really knew where to go with it, and like Wes said, it was a highly contested issue right away. There was nothing really that he could do about it, just sneak out of it with getting by. So we had to pick a way to handle it, and we had student speak outs. There was a lot of Senate discussion, and truly it came down to what the elected officials on Senate would say when the resolution went up for vote. Now, the only way I would have handled it differently is you need to do it a lot quicker. Right away when it became an issue, you sit down with the people around you, your executives, the top commissioners, and you say, this is how we're going to do it. You plan an agenda. This next meeting, we will have student speak-outs. You need more than student speak-outs because you have to allow students who don't know about coming to Senate meetings or student speak-outs to have their voices heard. You set up a way to figure out what they have to say as well. Once you've taken care of that, the very next step is ensuring that each senator or commissioner who has constituents that they represent is doing their job and making sure that they hear what their constituents want. The third step then is taking it to the meeting to have the Senate body discuss it. Once these three steps have been taken care of, within 3 days a decision should be made on how Student Senate is going to react to this. This whole process should take less than 2 weeks once started. When the situation's taken longer than this 2 weeks, that's when there can become more criticism and a lot more people wondering if you really made the right decision. If you want to put yourself in the position to make such a hard decision, you have to be able to make that decision in a timely manner and stand behind it no matter what.
What is that?
Yeah, Tony made a lot of good points in the fact that it needs to be more timely, and timing is everything. Because as a body, we've quite frankly looked scared. We looked like we didn't really want to deal with the issue. And to be frank, that's embarrassing considering we're supposed to be your student representatives here on campus. But in my personal opinion, it should have been put for a vote immediately. To do anything else is undemocratic. Tony, you've talked a lot about democracy, so I think to kick the can down the road is incorrect. We're an educated body. We're an educated group of people. As students, we're rational human beings, which a lot of times our administration, I think we'd all agree, takes for granted. So it should have been put up for a vote immediately after educating the body, and I could see this happening in 7 days, not 2 weeks, not 3 weeks, not 4. We can't be scared. We got to take a forceful hand on these issues as they shape.
A lot of what Tony said, he kind of was like talking about like student speak out and such. That should be done before there's like a crisis. That should be something that we're all doing. And I think that Zach is right that we should have acted much quicker. I mean, the way we handled SB 5 was a fiasco. It was terrible. We had students coming out en masse and saying, please take a stand, and we just refused to do it. I just have to say, as a point of fact, I don't think the members of the Reach Ticket, though, were that willing to do that. They didn't want it on the agenda. I can't speak for all of them as a unified body, but I know at least one person didn't want it there. I mean, that's just true. And if they've shown that in the past, how do we know that they're not going to do that in the future?
I'll go back. Liz, you got anything to add?
I mean, I'm just, as my job as vice president, my job is to make sure that things in Senate are running smoothly, so that way Tony can act as quickly as possible. I'm more than willing to take on that challenge. I can handle things, make sure the Senate's on the same page, so that we can get things moving just so fast, because there shouldn't be a delay with huge issues like that.
I'll take that. Yeah, I didn't want to see it discussed. I wasn't for, I didn't see the merit at the time. Through the discussions, I found out more. These two, on the other hand, told me I was wrong, and I think that's the best part about our relationship. We can bitch, we can disagree. At the end of the day, we come back together. If I could just touch on something really quickly. Tony spoke a lot about self-faith, self-assurance that he would hit the ground running. Well, I can believe I can fly. It doesn't mean I'm going to sprout wings. And self-faith is not a substitute for experience that we have.
I will. Just since I've been getting my name used a lot. Saying that you have this experience, a track record is a track record, but what have you got done? So that's kind of the same thing as self-faith. Just using kind of different words and different ways of saying it, in my opinion. You're allowed to disagree, of course. Now, at the same time, a democracy, it's not much of a democracy if you do a vote right away without knowing what your constituents want. That's a lot of the body just taking care and saying, this is my opinion, so I guess this is what you think too. So I think, taking that week's time to get actual student input and make sure that the senators are actually making informed decisions on what their constituents want, who they were elected to represent, I'd say that's doing things in a timely manner and doing it the right democratic way. So I don't think the word democracy was kicking the can down the road.
If you don't know what we've gotten done, I don't think you've been listening for the past 2 debates. General fee and general fund aren't being rebalanced. General fee is now transparent. Students are graduating earlier because of me. That's getting something done. And our comment about your democracy was about, you said you would get your top commissioners together and say how you're going to handle the situation. That's not democracy. That's you using your influence to decide how a situation is going to be done. We would let it come to a vote so the Senate could decide.
When I said I was going to persuade them, just make it play.
Maybe it was implied.
Oh, no, they can keep going.
Well, all right. We've looked backwards. Let's look forward now. And this is also looking backward a little bit, but we're all OU students. We all know that, speaking of public relations fiascos, the Fest are probably, for OU administrators, their worst nightmare. For most OU students, their most fun weekend. But this year's Senate released a very strong statement following the Fest. Current Treasurer Chris Wimsatt was out at the press conference with President McDavis and spoke very strongly, condemning the actions of students. Moving forward, I guess this is kind of a two-tiered question. The first part of that is, did the Senate handle the Fest correctly this year and in past years, condemning the behavior, having, whether it be the Fest safety, through committees, through tabling, to try to get information out there and being out there during the day? And second of all, what does the Senate need to do moving forward? Are Fests something that need to be ended? Are they something that, what is Student Senate's role in this? Because I think the run-of-the-mill student, who is very different than most of us, myself included, many students really don't like the reputation. Many students are also out there partying on those weekends. So how does the Senate represent those students while also working for the betterment of the university community?
I think that this year we did a really good job. I mean, promoting safe drinking habits and things like that, that's taking some proactive measures before the Fest begin. And I think that issuing the statement was completely reasonable. I'm not happy with how people act on the Fest. Unfortunately, though, I don't know if a Student Senate president can actually stop them, or in principle should stop them. I'm very against it. I don't like what it does to this university. We as a community here, and I mean that as the entire Ohio University community, have to decide where our values are. I don't think that's something that can come from the top down, and I know that's not the optimal answer, but I'm just saying, pragmatically speaking, I don't think it's possible to stop it in the year. I don't think there's a single action that a president can do.
Okay. Did you?
Yeah, he can hop on after. I was just going to say, I do agree with Jared in the sense, this isn't something that will be fixed in 1 year. It's something we can work on in 1 year, but it's something that's going to take time. We have a cultural problem here where we think, or at least some students here on campus think it's okay and somewhat funny to see a house on fire or set a couch on fire. Vast majority of students disagree with that. I know everyone in this room probably disagrees with that, but to even have one student say, yeah, it's okay, let's light a couch on fire, is not a good thing. I think it's working towards a culture. I think it's developing that culture. Zach, do you want to kind of jump off?
Yeah, and I think every person in this room and every person in this institution realizes that they come here to ultimately graduate and get a degree. And you don't want your employer debating between you and another student and realizing, well, you're the ones that set houses on fire, and that's the deciding factor. So.
Definitely. All right, so, one thing that we truly believe in is, like they said, first of all, this can't be handled with completely in 1 year. It's just impossible. It's been there for too long. And you don't want to go guns a-flying, trying to end it and ban the Street Fest. That's not the mentality you want, because a lot of students would come back that much stronger, and it would bring a lot more dislike from the student body to the institution. The way to handle the fest is understanding that it's a small majority of OU students, a small minority, of OU students that are doing, the really bad stuff. And I think we've seen that. This weekend apparently went really well as far as OU students go, especially, and overall arrests. So I really think that it's more than just saying to change the culture, because even if a culture is going the perfect way it should, there's still going to be one or two outliers. There always are. You can look at any culture that's ever been in the history of the world. There's always an outlier. So what you really need to do is show the students awareness programs, like Mary Kate's done such a good job at this year, and she always does with Fest Safety. Continue those efforts, but take it past just Fest Safety, like high-risk behaviors. Take it to the next level. How do you want to represent yourself to the nation, to the people around you, the public? And then it really helps too, though, when you go into some employers, say, I did graduate from there, I handled the pressures, I did it, and I know how to, have that social life while getting the degree. Liz, you want to add anything real quick?
I just think for next year, we need to hold our students accountable. It's not all up to Student Senate to fix every problem in the student body. If students don't like the party school image, hold students accountable. Have them do something to change it. If they see someone looking like they're dragging a couch onto the street to light it on fire, tell them to stop. There's not a whole lot that a small, Student Senate can do with 20,000 students when they're drunk on a weekend.
Well, I was going to say, I think it starts freshman year. It starts even before you become an Ohio University student. I think it starts with the mentality, number one, we project, and the mentality we set at orientation. Bobcat student orientation is great. They keep improving every year. And I think something we need to directly address more so is this partying atmosphere, this idea that you come to school to go to these big parties and that's it. Because if you can start really at freshman orientation, if you can set a mindset at convocation that when you walk away here, it should be in 4 years with a degree, I think that's when culture starts, because you can't go to somebody who's been here 4 years, somebody who's experienced so many great Palmer Fests or quote unquote great Palmer Fests, and then expect them to, all of a sudden have a change of heart. It has to be from the beginning. I think we do that through a couple things: education, honor council, which is something I chair, something that has a great message, something all students can buy into. Honor council doesn't say, or the honor code doesn't say you can't party, you can't go and have a good time. It says when you do so, make sure you act like an Ohio University student. Make sure you bring honor to that.
Just really quick. Just about some of the language about the fest. I actually don't think in principle we can stop the fest. The city can be ready to react quickly when something goes wrong, but I think there might actually be a legitimate freedom of assembly issue there. And so anybody saying we should ban the fest, they're just wrong. We can't do that. The government can't